And we're live on election night.
And we're live on election night. Yes, copy.
There's something in me that's been burning me, and I got to let it speak. 'Cause I've been hiding and it's hurting me, just to try to keep the peace. Because I know you care, and so it won't be fair if you don't know just who I am. I got to let my love into the world, and even though I'll always be your girl, I gotta do it my own way, got to be free. Know you want the best for me, it's true, but still I can't pretend I'm just like you.
Last week was a drag, in the best way. Kamala's closing speech had us in tears. The Dodgers won the World Series, and we had a huge early turnout to the polls. And
We're live on election night.
Know you want the best for me, it's true, but still I can't pretend I'm just like you. 'Cause there's a way that I'm different, you got to see the truth about me.
It's great to be back at the table one last time with my girls. Did you have a fun Halloween? Who was tricking and who was treating?
I gotta say respectfully, I was treating myself.
So what kind of candy?
I'm a Kit Kat girl. I'm a
Okay.
Reese's girl.
Reese's,
Those are
number
the big
one.
ones. Kit Kat or Reese's, either one.
Okay.
I had like a really boring, adorable domestic Halloween with my boyfriend. We stayed in, we put on like half costumes, and we just like handed out candy to the kids in our building. We have a lot of families in our building, so people were coming by.
Yeah.
It was cute. It was fun. It was low key.
I was tricking. I went to West Hollywood, like the carnival parade type of thing. It was my partner's first time, and I've been there 9 years in a row, so you already know. Y'all know it's like a mile and a half of just like pure misery.
Yes.
And I did wear my Katy Perry costume because I couldn't like figure out another look to do because I'm too busy with this show.
Yeah, that hair was beautiful.
That hair looked
That hair looked
gorgeous.
good. Thank you, Acacia. But yeah, we tried to get an Uber after, and we had to walk all the way from Santa Monica down to the Beverly Center, which is
Oh my
like
God,
over a
this is
mile.
Y'all could have walked home at that point.
At that point, you're in West Hollywood.
I am in West Hollywood, yeah. But we went the opposite direction. I think we went to Foo Bar. That is back.
Oh, yeah, it's back.
Wait,
yeah.
Foo Bar's back?
Foo Bar's back?
Yeah.
Yes, Billy
I had
and
no
Dante
idea.
had a new
I didn't
party
realize
there.
It was open already.
Oh, it's open,
But I
and
know
it's open
Did they
in
still
there.
Oh,
Did they still
yeah.
have the ass contest?
I did see some ass and
Okay.
some other things, but it was really fun. What about you, Sade?
I went out as well. I did a little bit of tricking.
Okay.
And I was treating the dancers. I went out, me and my husband, we got vampy. I did not go in drag because I wasn't getting paid. Yeah. So,
I did go in drag.
A little smoky eye, but I had a great time. We went out to precinct and then we went to afters.
Ooh.
So, you know.
Which afters?
You know what? I don't know.
Oh. And that's the best one.
We showed up and then we walked around the block twice because we didn't know how to get in. And then someone finally came and like opened up a door or a gate.
Okay.
I have no idea. It was like somewhere around East Hollywood.
As long as you had fun.
Yeah.
Tonight we will be checking in regularly with our very own in-house election correspondent, John Curtis. John, how are we looking so far now that the East Coast polls have closed?
Hi, I'm nauseously optimistic. Hi, everybody. I'm John Curtis, and I'm going to be talking to you about all things Electoral College tonight. So that's a lot of red. But I want to say right now, we don't know anything. Okay, I've gotten calls and texts from my family, my sister, my mom. They're in tears. We're all carrying a lot. We're going to learn anything from this map right now is that we don't know anything. all the usual suspects are showing up and all the swing states are still in play. One thing I will say before we go on is that we're going to be sourcing from the AP, the Associated Press. They call stuff, they don't project. So they're going to use a lot of mathematical variables and come up with their conclusions. And so this is where we're at right now. So initial looks, like I said, we don't know anything. All the blue states that have been called, all the normal states that you would think would go blue. All the red states that have been called, all the normal states that have been called for Trump. I'm wearing blue for 2 reasons. My Dodgers won the World Series, and I want to see the first woman sit in the Oval Office because we are long overdue. So this big red swath here, I have a bug to pick with these 2 states right here, Texas and Florida. We've all been in our social media bubbles, and for the last 2 weeks, I've been hearing people talk about, oh my God, this is the year. This is the year Florida's gonna turn blue. This is the year Texas is gonna turn blue. Heartache, again. They're red. But we knew that. There's still a long way to go this night, and Colorado just got called for Kamala Harris, so that's a good thing. And yeah, we'll keep you up to date as things come in. So ladies, what is your expectation for tonight?
We're expecting a Kamala Harris win. That's what we're expecting.
Exactly. Colorado is a good sign.
Yeah.
It is a very good
Absolutely.
sign.
It's really exciting.
I am so excited to have my sister and political activist, Guda LeGrand, join us at the table tonight. Guda, you have a political science degree, you're from a swing state, and you've worked in the field of organizing for Democratic campaigns. I'd love to know your thoughts on voting trends and why each demographic votes the way that they do. White men particularly.
Well, I wish I had a good answer for everybody about why white men vote the way they do. I've been with many, I'm related to many, and I
too.
still don't have an answer, and if you can't tell under all this, I'm also one myself. But I want to say thank you for having me tonight, ladies, and also hentai. But the reality is there's actually a lot of complexity that goes into why different demographics vote. We've seen some really interesting shifts over the last couple years. Something that I find really interesting is actually that over time, more people who vote report being less religious. And yet, we've seen an interesting trend that more people in areas where we wouldn't expect it, specifically in the Latinx community, but also among white men, that one's not the surprise, are actually starting to lean a little bit more conservative. I have a hunch that it has to do with a bit of a call back to religiosity, something that kind of plays into patriarchal society, if you will. That's definitely one trend we've been seeing for sure. Do you think that that's anything that you ladies have been seeing? Anybody been on their knees for more than a good time lately?
Well, I'm always on my knees. But for white men, I feel like there's this like loneliness pandemic that is happening with like white men that I don't know what that means. Like, why is there a pandemic for being lonely? Go outside. There is like Tinder for friends, there's Bumble for friends, you can go outside, you cannot be racist. But yeah, it's like really interesting, especially seeing the Latinx community like kind of vote more red, but they're still not a majority red, right? I feel like it's like 40%.
Certainly not, but there has been a shift. I think there is a really complicated relationship the Latinx community has long had with religion and with voting conservatively. A lot of our elders come from dynamics in their own countries that they're very afraid of seeing replicated, and that fear can sort of drive more conservative voting trends. I think fear is a major factor in terms of conservative voting trends.
Yeah, and that comment you make about where specifically they come from, the Puerto Rican population does not vote in an exact similar way that the Cuban population does. And especially we see a difference in Cuban Americans who were maybe born here or who are expatriates, or Cubans that actually came here later in time, right? There's actually a huge difference in the way those groups vote as well. Another big difference we're seeing in voting too is actually among education. It's like a very long-held thing that the smarter you are, the bluer you are. And that's something that we're continuing to see true, but we're also finding that, again, I'm bringing it back to the men, particularly among men, even though they're getting more and more rates of education, we're still seeing a very steady trend of conservatism among young men. Now, I think what you said about the loneliness pandemic is very interesting. I'm not going to say feminism left men behind, because that would be crazy.
Yes.
But what I am going to say is that I do think that we're at a time where we should be analyzing what spaces men feel comfortable in. And the reality is, at this point, I think they don't feel comfortable in most spaces because they've not been provided the tools to know how. I think we're in a bit of a gap of education when it comes. I know I'm defending men for probably.
No,
it is.
I think it's very much, and I think you would agree with this. It's not so much the fault of feminism so much as it is
absolutely.
an ongoing like result of toxic masculinity.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. You know, feminism comes in waves, and I think that we're at this point where we can kind of do a nice little U-turn, and we can say, all right, men, time to bring you back in our ranks. For some of us, it's a little bit easier. As like a queer person myself, I see the obvious necessity for celebrating femininity. Let me do a little hair flip.
Okay.
Occasionally.
Occasionally. I did give everybody my political lady makeup today. But that being said, I do think that we're kind of at a time where we can start to find new ways to embrace men. And the reality is in large part, the thing that nobody wants to do is to have to educate, right? There's a lot of labor that comes into that. There's a lot of taxing energy that comes into that. But the truth is and I'm going to say it, we have to stop telling people Google is free. I know it's true. One day it probably won't be. But the reality is that those people that you're telling that to aren't going to Google it. So if you have an opportunity to have an educational conversation, maybe bring somebody in a little bit, challenge by choice. But it's about time some of us who feel comfortable doing that, we kind of need to start doing it more.
I agree completely. And Google is getting less and less reliable these days.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I know the AI answers are really messing with people.
Yep.
Totally. I kind of think it's a product of men have had it so good for so long that they don't know how to exist without the system of the patriarchy.
Precisely.
And all the
I think
privilege.
that's a big goal of folks who are on the left, of progressives. We want to create a more equal, more equitable world. And that does involve eliminating the patriarchy as the establishing factor of our society.
Yeah, and also men are just being held accountable now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's really what it comes down to. Men weren't being held accountable, and they are.
But to me, I see this concept of the loneliness pandemic as an evidence of the fact that the patriarchy harms everyone.
Yeah, including men. Yeah.
Like the loneliness that they're feeling is based off of the toxic masculinity that's been ingrained in them, which is a result of patriarchy. So it's even more evidence that the way out, the way forward, the way to feel in community is to let go of those things and embrace like feminism, progressivism, embrace queer community, embrace the many colors of people that can be there for you and be your community.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because there really is a space for everybody.
Yeah.
But the line has to be drawn when you are using your role and your privilege to exert dominance over anybody else, especially folks who are part of marginalized communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, something maybe that you said that I think is interesting, you know, when it comes to patriarchy, when it comes to racism, misogyny, those are all tools that are often held by, let's say it, the capitalist ruling class. And a large reason that men are holding on to those systems in particular is because they feel like within this capitalist landscape, they're not as advanced as they used to be. And the reality is when we look at the numbers, it's true. But the problem is they've been so convinced that it's everybody else's fault. And that's kind of where I'm saying the gap in education is. It's too easy to blame it on other groups when you don't have proximity to them. And it's also too easy to blame it on other groups when people don't even show up to civics class anymore. And then we have an entire party dedicated to dismantling the Department of Education. I wonder why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know it's not just white men that like Kamala needed to get for this election. There's also black men that she was like trying to reach out to. I know there were like a few initiatives that she wanted to do, but what do you guys think? Do you think that's enough? Like, do you think that like we're gonna get the black male vote no matter what? Black men and women have voted almost 90% or over 90% Democrat for such a long time. But now that Kamala's on the ticket, they kind of felt like the black men were like shaken by that. Like, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think more so it's like, I think everything was so focused on like women and, you know, making sure rights that were taken away are brought back. And then that way, then I'm like, okay, so what about us? And that was one of her main things that she talked about.
Yeah.
So I think that's really where it was, where it got, you know, the black men are like, so what about us? What are you doing for us? Because you're talking about everyone but us.
Yeah.
Do you think her initiatives have been enough? Do you think they've
I
been
think
worthwhile?
they have done some things. I think in other ways, like Bill Clinton, I'm like, who is Bill Clinton speaking to? What black man is Bill Clinton speaking to? Not me. Because Bill Clinton, I was like 6 years old when he was elected. So
I wasn't alive.
Yeah. Oh, did I just tell my age? Oh my God. Take that out, dude. We're live though, right? Let's edit that out. No, but yeah, I think they worked. You know, they talked about the initiative in terms of like giving men. It's an initiative for men who are trying to be business owners, but they did say black men who are trying to be business owners, they're going to give them this money. So I think in those ways, it's addressed some of the things, especially because everyone, but men in particular, are very concerned about the economy.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that I think that men, when you look at the roots of our society, when I say our society, I mean the roots of American society here in the United States, it has always favored men,
Yes.
in particular white land-owning men.
Yes.
And when you look at white land-owning men today, they do not have the same influence as they did a couple of hundred years ago. So in their minds, they are losing rights. But the thing is, it has always been at the expense of everybody else.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I think it's easy to see equity when you've been in a position of privilege for so long. It's easy to see equity as a removal of your rights.
Right.
Absolutely.
When it's not, you're not losing out. Other people are gaining so that you can all be on a level playing field.
Yeah.
But then again, it's like, it's still seen as a loss.
It's seen as
It's
a
like,
loss
even
when
though
it
it's just,
shouldn't be.
nothing is being taken away from you, we're giving this to others. But when other people are lifted up, someone has to,
Someone has to lose privileges, but losing privileges isn't the same thing as losing rights.
right.
Exactly.
absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Write that
Exactly.
down.
I think
Yeah.
not being able to lord your sort of societal position over other people can feel like a loss, but it's really just equity. It's really about like other people being on the level playing field with you.
Absolutely.
So it's almost like that idea of the pie. Folks think of human rights as like a slice of a pie, but the thing about human rights is when they are granted to everybody, there's no more or less for everyone. Everybody should have a piece of the pie.
Exactly.
And when you have a piece of the human rights pie, it doesn't mean that you have more or less than anybody else.
The thing I always think of is there's this really great image of people at like a sports game, and there's a fence that's blocking their view, and someone is standing on like a stack of boxes, and equality is represented by everyone getting to stand on the same stack of boxes, but someone might be shorter fundamentally and not be able to see past even if they're on the same number of boxes. So then equity becomes you're on the amount of boxes that you deserve to make it so that you can see the game, even if it's a different. And so then if you're standing on 2 boxes and you can see the game just fine, but the person next to you is standing on 5 boxes, you might be like, well, why does that person get 5 boxes? Well, that's what they need to fight back against the systemic inequalities that have not allowed them to see the game.
Right.
And the goal is to be able to remove those boxes over time, so everybody over a slow roll can have the same amount of boxes.
The true justice is taking
And remove the fence.
down entirely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Remove the fence.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you said something that I thought was very interesting about why is the Democratic Party still road showing Bill Clinton? And that is something that I think is a long-going problem, which is that the Democratic Party is holding on to a legacy and an old strategy that's no longer working in their favor. And it ties in really well, I think, to the conversation of economic mobility as well that you brought up, which is that the reality is black men in this country, economically speaking, are not performing as well as they used to. That's for a large amount of reasons, similar-ish reasons, but obviously with extra prejudice that comes into it as other men that feel down in the slumps about their economic prowess. But that being said, the Democratic Party has, I think, gotten too comfortable with the
I agree.
idea of guaranteeing these votes.
I agree.
And when we look at actually in not only just communities that are predominantly people of color, but also when we look at rural white communities, a strong populist economic agenda actually really speaks to those areas. In places where Hillary lost in 2016, Bernie actually performed really well during the primaries, specifically in those rural areas that helped Trump win the presidency that took us all by surprise. So I think that's another reason why there's been a lot of hesitation because, frankly, I think we could all agree, we did see Kamala take a little bit more of a center position when it came.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's having a huge impact on how people have responded to her in the last minute.
Yeah, I was seeing like some people talking online about how Kamala isn't necessarily like campaigning on being like the first woman president.
Right.
And I feel like that's for a reason because obviously men feel sensitive about a woman being president for some reason. But I do think that overall that was a good strategy for her to have. But back to like swing states and stuff, how would you, as a white person, how do you go about talking to other white people about politics? Because I just can't help but feel so enraged and so emotional. I am just like an emotional person, even if my points are right, and I'm saying all the right things, I'm saying all the facts, like it's just the way that I say it. But I feel like in my mind, I'm talking like a white man, the way that other white men talk to other white men, but they don't like it coming from me. So how would you recommend going about that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say anytime that you have a point and you know you're right, stand your ground, first and foremost. But I think the reality is that sometimes people want to have an understanding from somebody that is similar to them. They want to have a conversation with somebody who has shared experience, which becomes an issue because then you're asking allies to speak for other communities they don't belong to. So I will always do my best to speak in a room where I have the opportunity to for, you know, anybody who's black, trans, any kind of marginalized identity that I can, but I never want to speak for those communities. But when it comes to speaking, I know I mentioned this earlier, I'm related to many white men. And when it comes to it, I find that the truth is men respond poorly to emotion. So I think that there is the challenge of, if it's going to be a conversation where you might lead with emotion, you have to make the choice of whether or not it's going to be a productive conversation for you. So that is one area where I definitely think that I can champion to some effect, because I'm going to be calm. You can act however you want. And I also think that there is, you won't hear me praise this man much, but the Pete Buttigieg approach of just being very calm, collected, and reframing honestly really does have its impact. I also think to some degree too, you can't always bring it up as a matter of statistics. Statistics out of context don't matter to people. You have to give them the application of how that's relative to them. You have to stop making everything sound like it's about everybody else.
Absolutely. Guda, what a pleasure it has been hearing your thoughts. Thanks for joining us. Before we check in with John about the election results, let's take a quick look at some of the fun we've had over the last couple of weeks.
Do you know you have 30 minutes? Are you kidding me? 30, yes.
Can you do a Cher impersonation? Let me see it.
I'm great.
Cher meets Kermit. You be so hard to touch, but about you way too much.
So what is your name as a group?
The Click.
Wig, okay.
Wig, did you just say wig?
Yes.
I know, wig. I feel that already.
What is wig? What is wig?
No, it's not your language, it's just for us. Wig.
Do you know them? No. But in the club, we all fam. What? In the club, we all fam. In the club, we are all family. Are you racist?
Okay, we are back with the Electoral College. No major changes, but if you've got loved ones, friends, and family at home, and they're looking at the map like me, and you see these plates that are in play right now, and they're slightly shaded red or they're slightly shaded blue. It means they're shifting. The votes are changing the way that the state's going to go. This is called the red or blue mirage. And it's freaking me out, but it's not something we should be freaked out, because this is the reasoning behind it. All of the rural voters and all of these are being counted first, and all the larger metropolitan areas are being counted later. So you might see a state like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Georgia, North Carolina, even Pennsylvania right now. They're all shifting red. But because of that mirage, we just got to wait it out and see how those votes come in. Right now, Wisconsin, 28.8% for, oh, that's North Dakota. North Dakota really went for Trump. Yee. So one of the things I want to talk about right now, some really exciting news in terms of some election results. We have State Senator Sarah McBride is projected to be the first openly transgender person elected in Congress in the state of Delaware. So let's give her a little round of applause. Ladies, when we come back to you, I want you to talk about this little nugget I found out. Projected to win her seat in Colorado, Bobo won. Lauren Boebert is going to win her house seat. That blows my mind. I'm sure you're going to have some things to say about that. So you're vaping in another Broadway show. Because of those things, we also have really tight races for the Senate and the House. Razor-thin majorities in both the House and the Senate. I'm sorry? So these margins are going to decide who runs the Senate, who runs the House. Right now we're sitting at 50, let's see here, the notes say 48 for the GOP senators and 36 for the Democrats. For the House, we have 134 for the GOP and 89 for the Dems. So, ladies, let's see what you have to say about Bobo.
I'm a little shocked.
Yeah, I'd rather talk about Sarah McBride
Yes.
than Lauren Boebert.
Yes. I do want to first just say huge congrats to Sarah McBride. And I also want to say really quickly that I think maybe your 3 runs for Congress as an attempt to be the first trans non-binary person. Oh no, I'm getting emotional. As an attempt to be the first trans non-binary person in Congress really did pave the way for that.
Thank you. That truly that means so much to me. I when I ran, I did not run to become the first trans person in Congress, but that was a huge part of it because trans people are so much in danger right now in this nation and globally. So I hope to think that maybe I had a little part to do with breaking that ceiling. And I'm so proud that we finally have a trans person in Congress, and hopefully somebody who's going to actually be taking care of trans people, somebody who's not like Caitlyn Jenner.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my God. Kind of forgot about it.
Good.
Well, Politicuties, I interviewed my friend Aragati, climate activist and drag artist in Minnesota, and I want to share that with you now.
Aragati, you are an exceptionally talented makeup artist and performer. What inspires you in drag, and what kind of concepts do you bring to your work?
Yeah, so for my drag, I like to draw on a lot of tradition and history from across the world, primarily from my heritage as a Native American. I'm Mandan and Kadadza, so I try to bring that perspective wherever I go because, you know, as Native people, we're kind of invisible on our own land, and I just like to remind people that we're here and we have voices worth listening to.
Let's talk a little bit about the election. You're actually one of the people who first brought my attention to the support that many Indigenous people have for Tim Walz, especially in the state of Minnesota where you live. What do you think a Harris-Walz administration would mean for Native communities in your opinion?
There's a lot of support for the Walz administration, but that's not to say that we don't have our complaints. Like with how Line 3 was handled, we still have a lot of people very upset about that. We also have activations against a pipeline that is planned to go through a sacred site here called Pipestone that is sacred not only to Minnesotan tribes, but to tribes across the Great Plains. We've had a lot of successes here with land that has been returned to tribes to stewardship. And, you know, land back, we got to get that. Walz becoming vice president would mean that Peggy Flanagan, who is our lieutenant governor here and is also an enrolled member of the Black Band of Ojibwe, she would become the first female Native American governor in U.S. history. And that's pretty amazing.
That's fantastic. Speaking of, you've done quite a bit of climate advocacy and activism. What informs your commitment to that work? And what advice do you have for folks who may be wanting to get more involved, but might feel intimidated by how large the climate crisis is?
Fundamentally, a lot of it comes to growing up ranching on the reservation. It can be overwhelming sometimes when you look outside and you realize that nothing is the same as it used to be. It can make you feel hopeless.
Yeah.
But hopelessness is easy. That's just giving up.
Yeah.
I always try to find something that I'm thankful for seeing, whether it's like a wild plum on a bush or dragonfly floating over the water or a butterfly that I hadn't seen since I was a child.
Yeah.
Taking those little moments gives you something to hold on to. And volunteering with people and making a difference on the ground and helping people find ways to reconnect with nature through indigenous food systems, through localizing their diet, through learning more about the land that they live on. It makes it feel that much more personal.
I love that. Thank you so much, Aragati. This has been such an enlightening and wonderful conversation. I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Before we move on to more political things, I have something to get off of my chest. So I have a rant, and it's not about how Donald's bronzer is 2 shades from having him in blackface, because imitation is the highest form of flattery. We see you. My rant today is about Uber. What happened to customer service? No drinks, no Tic Tacs, no gummies. Now you just get in and they arrive with their wives as they pick you up. This weekend, I was on my way to hang out with my sister, and it was picking me up and then picking her up, and we were on our way to go shopping. And the driver arrives with his wife. And I'm like, excuse me, sir, is this a Uber pool? And he's like, no, we're on our way home. I'm like, this ride is making multiple stops. Cancel it, please. I'm just like, am I crazy? Is that okay?
It's wild.
Like, do I want extra people in my car that's supposed to be just for me?
Especially if you're paying full price.
I don't think it's systemic. At least, if y'all recall, we had a really pleasant ride on the way to the studio today.
Yes.
We were in an Uber with a man. His name was Jorge. And he heard us going over the script, and he was laughing along with us. He was loving it.
I love that.
He was so moved.
He was so sweet.
He started crying.
Yeah.
He had tears coming down his cheeks, saying,
very sweet.
He said, I am so proud of y'all for being so punk, to be exactly who you are, and to not give up. Can you bleep me out there? About what you were bringing. And that was so moving and touching to me, and I feel like y'all had a similar experience.
It was. I still would have liked a bottle of water.
Or it's
It has high standards.
I miss the party Ubers where they have the karaoke in the back. You get to choose. The lights turn up.
The variety of snacks. They would have a snack bar.
Yeah.
I remember I used to get chips.
Yeah.
Jorge, though, if you're watching, we did truly appreciate you. I sent you the link, so I hope you're watching.
Yes. Thank you, Jorge. You were the best.
Oh, also to add to that, when we were talking about how this was a political show, it's election day, and we had asked Jorge, did you vote yet? And we kind of said it jokingly, and he was like, no.
Right.
And then after the conversation, he asked us for a voter guide and said he was going to go out and vote.
I love that.
So we at least put together one voter.
We got one voter.
You did a good job
out
of
it.
reminding him that he still had time to vote.
Yeah.
Still have about an hour left, right? Or 2 hours?
Yeah, just
2
keep
hours
going.
left before
Rant
the
as
night?
long as you can.
For the night? No, I'm talking about.
Oh,
no,
I
polls.
want 2 more hours of you complaining about
Me,
Uber.
what about Uber? Listen, customer service.
Can we talk about the Uber chasers?
Okay.
Oh.
I would love
that.
Okay, so when you look like a doll, you're all dolled up, and the Uber picks you up, and he starts asking you questions.
No.
And it's a common thing.
Yeah.
What?
Right?
Yeah, it is.
No, I haven't
You
had
have-
this experience
okay.
because I look
No.
as gender fucky as I do.
They want a taste of the doll. They want a taste of the doll, and it's like, oh. And they're the most straightest, manly man.
Yeah.
And I'm just a
That makes
very
sense.
dainty, petite woman that's almost 6 foot tall. But there are so many chasers. That's why I feel so weird going into Ubers in drag. But that's the reality of it. I mean, you guys do it.
But do you go with your wig on?
I never leave the house without a wig.
Hello.
I always come in full drag to the gig. I don't like to get dressed there. I don't want to put my wig there.
Yeah,
I want to be ready.
I hate going in drag at the gig.
I literally
Totally.
only go just with my face
Yeah,
painted.
you're halfling.
That's
It's like
confidence
the
to me.
head is bald. It's always, and I'm always in no clothes.
So
To me,
my,
that's confidence.
yeah, my man drives a 90s Bronco, and there's no AC. There's barely any radio. It's very small. And because my wig is so big today, I was like, maybe I can't put my wig on. We'll see. But in the car ride, I was just leaned back like this for 45 minutes.
We saw you get out of the car.
Oh, yeah.
We saw you get out of the Bronco, and
And I hit my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, and that's exactly why I cannot travel and drag. I need to be comfortable. I need to be comfortable until I have to be uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I will
me being
say, though,
closer to-
my man was my former Uber driver. No, I'm kidding. Could you imagine?
No, yes,
No,
I did.
I just love to lie. I
was
love
so
to lie.
invested in that story. I was like, go on.
Yeah, he
Okay,
asked
now,
me
yeah,
if
please,
I was a
okay.
man. No, yeah, I'm very lucky that I actually met my boyfriend before I started doing drag, and he's the one who like really encouraged me because we were watching Drag Race Live, in Vegas. It's like a big production show, and he turns to me, he's like, "You can do that," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm better," and. So I bought this wig that looked like Swade's wig. I have my Babiana, and yeah, he took me to all my gigs. He's been taking me to all my gigs. He's here right now, taking me to my gigs.
He's so sweet.
He's really sweet.
My boyfriend is the first person I ever put in drag, actually. So
Oh my
I
God.
guess technically,
Not the
I don't
incest,
call him
the
I
drag child.
don't call him my drag child, but I guess very technically, he's the first person I ever put into drag myself. Although when he first started doing drag, had no knowledge of makeup. Like, was brand new to it. Had never really done drag makeup before. And the way he has like built a character in drag, oh my God, it's so, I'm like so inspired to see it.
I put my man in drag, and I want him to like do it. I know he will never do it. He would never, because I'm too jealous.
Right, he's gonna take all the attention away from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if there's one thing I'm gonna do, it's gonna be clocking someone's mug. We'll be right back with one more poll check-in, or more poll check-ins, and another special guest. But first, more Trump, I guess?
She was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or... You know who embraced it more than anybody else? The black population. It's incredible. You see black people walking around with my mugshot. You know, they do shirts. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live. I see too many people out there, but I can only see the black ones. I can't see any white ones, you see? That's how far I've come. The late, great Hannibal Lecter. Okay, they say, why would he mention Hannibal Lecter? The mic stinks. We had to go back to 1798. That's when we had laws that were effective.
So wait, hold up. You're telling me that all of this hell that Trump's put us through could have been avoided if in the beginning someone would have just thought to ask him when he thought America was great? Obviously that was pre-Roe v. Wade, and we could have figured it was pre-civil rights. But here he's saying that it was pre-Civil War. And there's a single fucking person still on the side of the grabbing Confederate king.
Now, if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole... That's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
Harleen Quinzel, actor, artist, and our show producer, is here to talk to us about how Gen Z is going to save the world and hopefully this election. Harleen, it really does feel like Gen Z has stepped up this election. Why do you think that is?
I feel like there's a lot of reasons. I mean, I'm pretty like a middle Gen Z. I don't actually know when Gen Z's like first year is, but I kind of grew up in the age of social media. I grew up in the age of, I think we were like millennials too, but I think we were kind of the first generation to be like purely social media based for the most part, you know what I mean? So I kind of grew up, you know, seeing everyone and seeing everybody's point of view very easily, you know what I mean? So I think if I can speak on behalf of Gen Z, I think that's why. I think it's because, you know, we see so many more point of views than we've ever seen in history. You know what I mean? Like I've been watching queer YouTubers and, you know, black YouTubers, you know, since I was a kid, you know, I've grown up seeing so many different types of people. Plus I live in LA, so.
Yeah. I think exactly what you're saying. Social media, the internet has made the world smaller. It's made everyone closer in a way. No matter the distance, you can almost always find someone who shares your point of view, or you discover something new that you wouldn't otherwise find in your particular area. So yeah, I would definitely say social media, the internet has definitely changed how we see the world and how we interact with the world, because it's a whole new dynamic and dimension, if you will.
No, I think it's really great that like with social media, like Twitter specifically, we get real-time news, like, and we get it direct from like the primary source, whoever is saying it. And like I think it's a double-edged sword because like there's so much exposure to all this news and all these different point of views, but then it can also be like overwhelming because you're constantly being hit with so many things that like we would have never known about if it wasn't for social media. You know, everything that's going on in Gaza, everything that's going on in Yemen, everything that's going on in China, like, well, not really China because they block everything.
Right.
But
Sudan,
yeah.
The DRC, I should say.
And it can be very like overwhelming to hear all these tragedies all at once, constantly happening. And I think that's the hard part about being on social media. I mean, I'm chronically online. So I am like consuming and ingesting and digesting all of this information. But yeah, it does feel overwhelming. What do you think?
That's why 90% of my generation has anxiety.
Yeah.
Because we see everything all the time. And I think there's such beauty in that, in seeing like all the things that we would never have seen if we didn't have cell phones, if we didn't have computers, you know what I mean? Like I never would have known the like beauty that was in the world if I didn't have social media. And also I think that we're kind of seeing, it's almost like the internet kind of brings out the best and also the worst in people.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're kind of seeing the absolute, hate to say it, like worst part of humanity just on a platter. And so it kind of makes us, we're kind of forced to step back and be like, whoa, you know what I mean? We're kind of forced to be like, wow, this is the people that we are around in the grocery store, or you know what I mean? So
but I think for those of us who live in the US and the imperial core in one way or another, it's really essential to be able to have that awareness. Like I think it's allowed people who have lived relatively sheltered and privileged lives to like have an awareness and an empathy for the conditions that people live in around the world. And I think it's really necessary. I think that it has shaped so much of your generation, mine to some degree. I'm like a cusper. I don't really know where I fall in the generational hierarchy. But it shaped a lot of our upbringings, our understandings of the world. I think I definitely developed like a political sensibility online more so than in person when I was younger.
I would definitely say that millennials and Gen Z are probably the most political generations so far. Like obviously every generation has their politics and their political people, and that knowledge gets passed down through the generations. But I think because we have access and because we are able to talk without meeting in person, like so many more conversations are happening at one time, especially during this election process. Like I've been seeing so many people my age, like Dean Withers. He's a huge Democratic, he's a very political person, and he goes on to like have you seen like those Jubilee interviews where it's like this person versus these people?
Where they argue?
Oh, I've heard about these.
Yeah. And he went on that, and he basically, it was him, I think, against like 14 40 Republicans, something like that. And it's just so interesting because it's like, wow, that person is my age and they're doing this. You know what I mean? It's so magical and cool and very, very brave. Yeah, absolutely.
You said something earlier about anxiety, how the Gen Zers like it brings anxiety, having access and being able to see so many images. And I know as a millennial, I just turn it off. I literally am just like, okay, I had enough, I can't do it anymore. But I understand how, when this is your source of information, it's kind of hard to step away. So what do you do as a Gen Zer to kind of like help calm your anxiety when you feel like it's just too much?
I honestly wish I knew. I wish I knew what I could do, because I'm an anxious mess all the time. But honestly, I think that the best thing that you can do is, not keep certain people on a pedestal. I think we think of like, extremists as like these super villains that can take over anything, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, they're just humans like us, you know what I mean? And when you kind of start to pull back and realize like, everybody's gonna have their opinion. No, there's never gonna be a time in history where everybody agrees. There's never gonna be that. But if you keep that in mind, I think it makes it easier for you to kind of process like, okay, we're all just humans trying to coexist. Some of us don't have like the best education. Some of us aren't as on social media, so they're not as aware of the things that are going on. And I think, it's definitely important to step away. And I so applaud all the other generations who are able to do that. I think Gen Z, we're very guilty of having like the car accident thing where it's like, it's so bad you can't look away. You know what I mean? So being able to step back is so important, and like self-care, like don't be afraid to be selfish sometimes, especially in this day and age where just like selfishness seems so, you know, like the worst thing you can do. Like you always have to think about other people all the time, but it's like there's no helping other people unless you help yourself.
I think to
that's
me,
it. I'm sorry. No. I'm just, that was a amen moment.
Yeah, I agree. I think to me there's so much to do with like mindfulness and how you're consuming or taking in content online.
Yeah.
Because it's, you know, like in situations like, let's say, the genocide in Gaza, I think it's a privilege to be able to step away.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
The people experiencing it can't step away from it. That's their life. And so I think it is being able to moderate what you're seeing, moderate how much you're taking in, but I think it's also being mindful about how you're taking it in, being aware of your body, you know, how is this making me feel? What is this bringing up inside me? And then the next step should be action. It shouldn't just be I'm consuming this content.
Yeah, don't let it consume
I'm inundating it. It's then, okay, I'm feeling some type of way about what I'm seeing. It's inspiring something in me. What do I do with that?
Right.
What's the next step? And I think that's the biggest like antidote to despair is that action, is being able to say, okay, what's next? How do I fit into this puzzle? What do I do with the way that I'm feeling?
Absolutely. Even for me as a millennial, a thick millennial, you and I both, both born in '86. We're pushing 40. Sorry to age us. But you know, we kind of grew up in this era where we have a very unique perspective. I grew up in a time before any sort of social media, before internet. I remember the introduction of caller ID, the introduction of America Online, chat rooms, and then eventually, you know, social media, starting with MySpace, and then eventually Facebook, Twitter, etc. I was in college when Facebook came out. I was part of the first generation on Facebook.
When it was just specific colleges.
When it was just specific colleges and only college students.
Yeah, only college students.
I'm not really on Facebook anymore, but it pains me to see that my 20-year anniversary on Facebook is happening. Anyways, aside from the point,
your Facebook account could be in college now.
Okay.
All right, and that's enough.
But what really like strikes me as somebody, you know, sort of growing up before the rise of social media and now living my adulthood in the age of social media, as somebody who is at the beginning of social media, I've seen social media, the way that it has evolved over time. And at first, like you said, it was just college students on it. It was a very small community. And then suddenly everybody and their mom and their grandma was on Facebook. And then when I think about Gen Z and how Gen Z has sort of grown up in this era where there has always been social media, it just strikes me as interesting because I remember growing up and the world around me seemed like that was it. You know, unless you're seeing something on TV or on the news, the world around you is what exists. And now with Gen Z, for many Gen Z, especially some of the older Gen Z, social media has been their entire life. And it's remarkable to me because like, I would imagine, here's the thing. When I was growing up, I didn't see anything like the genocide in Gaza happening live on social media every single day.
It would be only what the news would show you.
Totally. And to me, that really strikes me as something that would impact this generation. I mean, that would impact my generation if that was the case back in 2000. And here we are with this whole new generation of young people moving into adulthood who are now of voting age and who hopefully are saying enough is enough. And I think that's what has made this world so interesting and a little bit scary is everybody has an opinion and everybody wants to change the world. And suddenly everybody has a voice, which I think is great, but it's also a little bit scary in many ways.
It is.
You know?
And just to like play off of what you were saying, just to kind of wrap it up, is like, knowing your anxiety and knowing all this kind of stuff, I think that's why Gen Z is so furious right now. Is because we see everything that's going on in the world. We see the genocide in Gaza. We see all this kind of stuff, and we want to take action. And we're doing that right now.
Yep, absolutely.
And then the last thing I want to say about that is that, like, I think for like being anxious online and on social media, you really need to get out of the comments and stop fighting with people.
Yeah.
Yo.
Stop
Yes.
fighting
It's
with
useless.
people.
It's
That
useless.
really
Oh my
helped
God.
me after the pandemic, because during the pandemic I had too much time and I was fighting for my life, but now I don't.
Well, we are still fighting for our life.
Yeah, but as a Gen Z cusper, I am so hopeful and excited to see how our future looks. John, how's it looking out there? Please give me some good news.
One sec. I'm going to give you some news, and it's news I don't like either, but let's get it out of the way real quick. Mike Johnson won his House seat in Louisiana. He's probably going to remain the Speaker of the House. Ted Cruz is up by 100,000 votes in Texas against a supremely good candidate in Colin Allred, so I don't understand that one either. But here's a bit of news that I like. Coming out of Colorado, they have voted to maintain reproductive rights for women. And that's been on the ballot in a number of states across the United States. And I would think that that would drive a huge blue wave. So I'm still shocked to see this red wave here. Some other news that's coming out. Ohio went red as usual. This was the big tease, and this one hurt. Iowa, we're up by 3 points. Got called for the T word. So yeah, I'm looking at this big red map, and it kind of makes me a little sad, and I'm gonna get a little real quickly. This is a decade of like people not following the science, not caring about their neighbors. This is a decade of, in 2016, this shocked me. In 2020, I was very disappointed. Now I'm really sad. This is a decade of people making fun of the disabled, of misogyny, of people being terrible. And so I know there are voices in their heads every single day on right-wing media, but how do we get through to these people? This is our loved ones. These are our family and friends. Okay, so where are we in the race right now? Kamala Harris has 113 electoral votes, and Trump has 210. But the states that haven't been called yet, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, these are all going to decide the race. And right now they're fluctuating. They're so close. My sister just texted me. Arizona is like 1,000 votes apart. So strap in. It's going to be a long night. Ladies, what do you think?
Stressful.
Very. Good insight.
Yeah, I don't like hearing about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this past week, I interviewed Marty Good Cummings, former candidate for New York City Council, and we got some insight into what's happening in NYC right now regarding the election. We have a clip.
Marty, do you want to maybe start off by just introducing yourself and anything you'd like to say initially?
I'm Marty Cummings. I use they, them pronouns, and I am proud to have been the first non-binary candidate and first drag artist candidate for city office in New York City when I ran in 2021, and I now work as a project specialist for Equality New York.
The election is finally here. How are you feeling about it personally?
Across the country, we're feeling a lot of fatigue. The last 9 years, especially, people have been just burnt out. But the vibes in New York are very good, very positive. We have hundreds and hundreds of people going to Pennsylvania every weekend to knock on doors. I'm going tomorrow and on election day because I put it early to do some last minute efforts. And then in New York, we have ballot proposals, which I think are really important things to talk about across the country. Also because ballot initiatives are happening all over the country. And so people need to be educated on what these initiatives are. And in New York, we think, oh, we're New York, we're super progressive, but we have to make sure, even in New York, that we're protecting reproductive justice and making sure that we're protecting people against discrimination.
As you mentioned, state propositions are so important. We have a similar proposition called Proposition 3. It's the freedom to marry proposition. And essentially what we do in California, it would enshrine in the California Constitution the right for any two consenting adults to get married, regardless of race, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation.
We need to stand up for our trans community because they're under attack first and foremost across the country. But for the gays in our community who think they're safe, you're not.
So I wanted to ask, as a former candidate yourself for New York City Council, what have you been doing to get out the vote?
Yeah, I've been working with Broadway for Harris and Not for Democracy and First for Kamala, and of course Equality of New York, who I am a project specialist for, getting people on buses to talk to swing state voters, phone banking, but not just for the presidential, because like we said, we have to take back the House, we have to maintain the Senate. State legislative bodies need to be bodies that are putting forth the progressive agenda, and then local elections and ballot initiatives. So they're really doing voter outreach around that.
Well, Marty, I think we got to wrap this up, but I want to thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we will all find out soon. Hopefully some good results.
Fingers crossed. I'm so anxious but optimistic.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Marty.
All of this has me thinking about how crazy we look to people in other countries. Have any of you visited other countries and experienced that firsthand?
I have. During the previous Trump administration, I had gone to France for a friend's wedding, and we were in the south of France, and I was just like, we were going to out to eat for lunch or something, and this gentleman was just like, "Oh, are you American?" It was my first experience, with the disgust on his face. I was just like, and this is the south of France, and I'm in a place where they're not cabs or anything. I'm stuck where I am. So I'm yeah. And he's just like, how do you do it with Trump as president? And I'm just like, oh, I'm not about to have that conversation. I'm just like, I just manage. And he's just like, aren't you scared that you're gonna die?
Sorry.
And I'm like, what? He's just like, because you're black. And I'm like, oh, God. But yeah, this is how we look.
That's how we look to other
That's
countries.
how we look to other countries. They're more scared for us as citizens. And then they also don't want to visit us.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, oh, no, I might, other people who are of African descent are not interested in coming to the U.S. because how we appear on media, and when I say we, I mean the U.S.
country, yeah.
We look like we do not care about people who are of color. We're out here getting killed like livestock. That's how it's viewed for others. And I'm just like, wow. I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, it's not great, but this is how we look.
Yeah.
And Trump has only made it look worse, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really telling that on a global stage, our country looks oftentimes foolish, if not foolish in the best way, if we're being generous, if not downright dangerous and inequitable. I haven't left the country since I was really young, so I can't speak to that experience, but I do have a really dear friend who lives in New Zealand who has shared with me the many ways in which they find our country very shocking. And the news that they receive, that they hear about, especially I will say New Zealand's pandemic response was very different from the way that the U.S. has handled the pandemic and is continuing to kind of bungle that pandemic response. Other countries see that and are horrified by it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will say though, for the U.S., I know we talk about race, we talk about inequity. There are just so many different demographics that live here in the US, and it's hard for us to have a more homogenous way of thinking. And I know that I lived with French people, so I know how rude they are. Love you guys, love you. But when I listen to them speak, I'm talking to other Europeans. I went to college here in LA, and I'm around all these different people from different countries, and they're just as racist. No shade, those Europeans are just as racist.
Something that I think is worth noting here is that a lot of the problems, particularly with racism in the United States, can be traced back to colonialism, which is a European export. Yeah. Colonialism came here from Europe. And so, I do find it a little irritating when, people from, the UK or Spain are oh, it's so racist in your country, how do you handle it? Well, those are your cousins.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's who's doing the racism. Is exported, yeah.
Well, it comes from colonialism.
Yes.
You have to separate people and make people less than, when enslavement and all of that, they're how can we differentiate ourselves
Yeah,
from them? How can we make them less human?
Yeah, I think in the US too, like we're just like, I mean, at this point now, like since 2016, we're just so open about talking about race and talking about all the injustices, where I feel like in other countries, they're kind of like just not speaking about
It's
it.
a more taboo subject.
Yeah, like you shouldn't like say it, but then you like see like videos of like people in Asia being like scared of black people, and it's like, this.
Yeah, that is anti-blackness as well.
Yeah.
That is racism, and it is something that is not exclusive to the U.S. It is a huge problem in the U.S., but it's not exclusive to this country.
Yeah.
And what's interesting too, so I used to be a flight attendant. I got it.
Oh, okay.
And what I've noticed too, when Black Americans leave the country, we are treated very well. And I mean, in Australia, in Asia, for the most part, and parts of Europe.
Yeah.
But what I have noticed is that Africans or people who identify as black who are indigenous to that area are not treated well. So if you're like a Black American, they will treat you nicely. I don't know if it has to be because like they see it on media and they're like, oh, they're treated so badly, like, or I don't know what it is, why.
Maybe it's just the privilege of being American.
That's quite possibly the reason. But I see the same exact behaviors though here in other places.
I've only been out of the country once since Trump was elected in 2016. And it was just like a weekend trip south of the border to Rosarito, and but one of the reasons that I think that the rest of the world has such an opinion about this is because of the impact that the United States has on the rest of the world. When we hear about the term superpower, like that's really, it's actually a thing. I mean, especially in terms of military impact, in terms of economic impact, but more so military impact.
I'm Nicaraguan. Like the fundamentally the state of Nicaragua's like current affairs as they exist today are direct as a result of American interference.
Yes, exactly. And even like that's one of the things that bothers me about Republicans talking about illegal immigration coming into the United States. When we talk about undocumented immigrants and the reasons why they're here in the U.S., one of the things that is so often left out of that conversation is often the fact that the reason that many of those folks come to the United States is because of the direct impact of the United States' foreign economic policy regarding other nations.
Yes. Right. Yeah. In terms of the global south, they have every right to have opinions about how our country is being run because it directly affects their day-to-day lives.
Yeah. So back to what you were saying about like the U.S.'s impact, specifically like the military, like they had a really big like or like this secret war in Laos that like not a lot of people talk about. So they basically like reached out to like the Hmong like people in Laos and got them to be on their side during the war, and it started like this Laos civil war, which is why my family is here now. Like they like. It was like a church or something, somewhere in like Minnesota or something, that actually sponsored my family to come to the U.S. And it's just like interesting now that like now religious people don't want immigrants here. But like I think the whole thing about Christianity is like taking in the needy and the poor and
that's
like
what it should be.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that what missionary work is? It's not just about like.
Wow.
I know a different missionary.
We're going with the ideal.
The ideal,
That's what we're going. It's to not just spread the faith, but also like to create community, right?
Yeah, it should be at its best. Well, let's hope we have a new outlook tomorrow. Politicuties, we'll be answering your questions at the end of the show, so get those in now. We'll go to John, who's on top of the election results, in a moment. But first, here's a look back at some of the highlights from Harris's campaign.
Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion. My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. You have German chocolate cake? Is that what that is?
German chocolate, that's right.
You know, that's my cake. On behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America. Did you vote? Are you gonna vote? Oh, will you ask people that you know to vote, please? And will you ask them to vote for me?
She has to win. She has to win. She's sharp as a tack. She's strong, empathetic. Like, what couldn't you like? Ladies, I have some good news. Visually, we're not going to be assaulted as much as we've been all night. California, Washington, a few other states have been called officially for Kamala Harris. So now we're standing at 179 for Kamala Harris electoral votes to 214 for Trump. It's still jarring, though, to see 51 million people voting for him and 45 million voting for her. But the map is shaping out. Still no swing states have been called yet. The Senate races, we've got 39 Dem seats and 48 GOP seats right now. The House, we're looking at 104 Dem seats and 155 GOP seats. Those probably won't, we probably won't know anything about that until later tonight, but that's scary. It's scaring me. Like, all of these people, I have a core memory of watching January 6th. Okay, I'm sure a lot of you do too. All of these people saw January 6th and were like, what? Come on, people. Anyway, it's shaping up, but ladies, what do you think?
It's daunting. I can't imagine how January 6th isn't a deal breaker.
Exactly.
I mean, there were so many deal breakers before that,
That
is
part.
the thing.
That part.
So.
Yeah, it's a really depressing, actually.
Even the
honestly.
Confederates didn't make it to the Capitol, and they did. And I just want to know, what is wrong with y'all? Just what is wrong with you?
Yeah, it's confusing. I don't get it. Ladies, with all this going on, I'm sure one of you has something they need to get off of their chest. I think it's time for another Dragon.
Okay, as I'm getting older, I am becoming more and more like my Asian mother. You know, okay, so there's a few things, but one of the things that comes to mind immediately is in the morning, I wake up angry. And
That is horrible.
I wake up angry and I start stress cleaning, and I start cleaning, but instead of being like, hey, can you help me? I was like, oh, I do everything around the house. Nobody wants to help me. I'm always doing dishes. And I start listing off all the chores I did for the week. And as I'm like sweeping and cleaning and all that stuff. And then another thing that I've been doing lately is I've been walking with my hands behind my back. And I'm taking my strolls, like my little stress strolls. And instead of walking, I'm noticing that I'm waddling like my mother.
Oh, no.
Yeah, my mother is honestly my hero. She moved here after the Laos Secret War. And it's been about 30 something, almost 40 years. And only a decade ago was like when she was able to finally have her own business, to buy a home, to own cars. And within those 30 years, she was able to like create the American dream for herself. And right now, she owns a restaurant called New Spicy House.
Ooh.
It used to be called Spicy House, but when she took it over, she doesn't know a lot of English words. So it's new. It's New Spicy House. And that's kind of like where her economic growth kind of started. And she just inspires me because she works 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, no breaks. She won't even take off for like her birthday or whatever. So I feel like that's where I get a lot of like my workaholic type of behavior from her. And then recently on social media, I know Swade saw my big pot of soup.
Oh, so good. Listen, those noodles.
I know.
I want me a bowl.
I want
right
some
now.
too. I want
Yeah.
some too.
It's so good.
It's the size of Swade, the pot. And 2 whole chickens, a lot of onions, a lot of ginger, and all this stuff. And then me and my partner made like these tapioca rice flour noodles from scratch. And it's like my mom's recipe. And I'm like constantly calling her and bothering her of like, how do I cook and how do I create this community that I grew up with? You know, there was always like 4 nuclear families all cooking together, all the wives cooking, all the kids helping, and all of the men watching Animal Planet.
Animal Planet.
I don't know why they love it. They love it. It's
Shark
always
Week.
like, yeah, like Shark Week,
So
like
what's up with men, between like sports and animals?
No.
simple minds, you know.
Enjoy. See, I always grew up with my dad in the kitchen. My dad is the cook in my family. So like I actually like remember being as a kid being confused by the stereotype that like moms are always cooking. I'm like, but that's not true. My mom doesn't cook.
Yeah.
She can burn one pot of water.
So interesting.
I love you, Mom. I know you do many
Drag
other
your
things
mother.
so well.
Yeah. Speaking of that, like in terms of like gender norms, like I grew up in a house where my mom was the breadwinner and my father like really took care of us, and they both cooked. And like there was no like, oh, my mother's the cook or the father's cook. They both cooked, and they were both excellent. But yeah, I never in my mind, although you know you read the books, you watch the television, I never in my mind once thought, it's odd that my mom is the one going to work. It's odd that my father is the one like doing all the house
you're
stuff.
just used to it.
Yeah, it never clicked. It never clicked in my mind that it was like, something's off here.
Well, your relationship with your mom sounds beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really do feel better, but I have a hot topic I want to discuss. But first, this break.
Latinos and black people for Trump, this is what y'all sound like. Orca whales for SeaWorld. Slugs for salt. Dinosaurs for meteors. Titanic survivors for icebergs. Latinos for Yolanda Saldivar. Free her. Forests for forest fires. Indigenous people for Christopher Columbus. Japanese people for the atomic bomb.
Oh.
Blacks for Jim Crow. Britney Spears fans for conservatorship.
Well, I just want to know what that person looked like. But this is kind of another rant, but can we talk about in the closet Republicans?
Please.
Who wants to go first?
Okay, I'll start it off.
Please.
Okay.
Let's start with the RNC.
Ooh.
And how Grindr crashed during the Republic National Convention. That's crazy.
That is wild.
But also, shame on you, Grindr, for not making sure that you had that ready. You knew that convention was coming. Listen, and listen, they know. They have the info. They know Republicans are very much on the apps.
Grindr is already selling our information. All of these apps are selling information.
Right.
Expose them.
Yeah.
Show me their faces. Show me their no.
No, but like I unfortunately don't have something fun to say about this. To me, like this is so indicative of how violent the closet can be. Like it is because it gets in your head and it fucks you up to some degree, especially if you're like lifelong closeted and you really like feel like you can't be out and you can't be the person that you feel like you are. And I mean, we know that there are out gay Republicans. There are gay Republicans who are well out. But I feel like the closet is so violent in the way that it makes you see other queer people.
Yeah.
And there's this jealousy and this fear that inspires like these really heinous actions that Republicans, who people speculate might be queer, enact when they're in office.
Totally. I just the idea of like a gay Republican, as you said, there's a lot of gay Republicans that are out, but I really actually do feel for the gay Republicans that are in the closet, and I imagine they're in the closet because they're probably not actually Republican. Imagine being a queer person, a part of a family in a deep red state with a deep red conservative background, and how that would feel to try to have to come out. And so I don't know. I just want to say there's always room for more people in our queer community.
Oh, yeah.
And there's always room for forgiveness. And, just because you were raised Republican, it doesn't mean you have to follow and be a Republican for the rest of your life. Like, you actually can be a part of the party or another party that actually cares about queer people.
Yeah, and maybe, a party that doesn't say normal gay guys.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, there is like a very real rift that is sort of forming, not entirely in the LGBT community, but among certain people who, like, cis gay people in particular, really want to distance themselves from trans people and be able to say, well, look at me, I'm actually normal and acceptable.
Yeah, they want to be one of the good
I'm
ones.
basically just like you, except for who I date. And won't you accept me and won't you love me? And the answer is no. No. Turning your back on the trans community, turning your back on the rest of the queer community to find that acceptance, it's always going to be hollow, and it will leave you like out in the cold in the end.
Yeah, and it's odd that, as a community, you're not viewing trans people as like leaders, because
they are leaders.
Have always been leaders, have always created the spaces for the rest of us to kind of like say, oh, good, I can step into here and I can feel normal, you know what I mean? And to go ahead and say that to like a group of like marginalized people, to say that they're to other within it.
Well, part of the reason why even the idea of like this phrase "normal gay guys," first of all, it's not normal gay people; it's normal gay guys.
That's very
exactly.
telling.
What that does is it is just reinforcing not only the patriarchy and not only white supremacy, but also this idea that you, as long as you are not outwardly and visibly queer, we will accept you. But the fact of the matter is that they still will not. They're not going to accept you. They're only going to kind of accept you if you hide that part of you, if you hide your queerness and your otherness and your differentness. But that is part of the huge beauty of the queer community, is the diversity of the queer community, is of all of these different expressions, and you come as you are. And that's part of the acceptance of the queer community, is we welcome you as you come, as you are. Whereas here we have Trump and J.D. Vance basically saying, oh, I bet we've got the normal gay guy vote. And what that's trying to say is like, again, we'll accept you if you're like us and you hide that part of you. And freedom of expression. These folks are all about the First Amendment. I'm all about the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And what that is freedom of expression, to exist how I want to exist. And that's how everybody should be able to live their lives in this nation.
That pressure to assimilate is legitimately violent. It causes like real mental health crises in the queer community. That feeling of like, well, I can't be the version of myself that I am, or I have to somehow tailor who I am to what I'm supposed to be. It genuinely comes at the cost of like actual mental health and stability.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have a controversial opinion. So I think that people should come out of the closet. I know that there's like this like weird shift about people being like, people don't need to know about my business. They don't need to know that I'm queer. But like, it's not just about other people knowing. It's about like you fully accepting yourself and not having something to hide. And I know we're talking a lot about like self-expression. A lot of like these closeted people obviously are suppressing their queerness, but also suppressing so many different aspects of their lives. They don't really know who they are. They don't know what their interests are. They're just being told and fed what to think and what to believe in. And that's why I think like it's so important for us to come out of the closet. When I came out of the closet, it was the worst possible case scenario. And I was really, 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 really young. I was only 11 years old. And if someone, 11-year-old queer brown boy, is able to come out and face the consequences and really suffer those consequences of like coming out at such a young age. I remember wearing like a legalized gay shirt in middle school to like my free dress day and got detention for it. And I would like dress up and like I was in drag and doing all these queer things. And I just like, it makes me so sad for people who are in the closet, but also just so frustrated for them, because I just want to shake you and be like, your life is going to be so much better. Your life is going to open up to all these different communities, all these different types of expressions and ideas. And I just hope that they're brave enough to do that.
Yeah.
I agree with that whole point in terms of what you were saying. I just lost my thought. No, but I know, like, I kind of feel like as a person of color, though, okay, this is like a lot to unpack. As a person of color, I feel like you are more equipped to deal with the negative things that are going to come your way. You know what I mean? So, like, as a Black person growing up in Brooklyn, New York, and I was just like, okay, I'm about to come out to my parents. I'm like, I'm prepared for this because literally my whole education has been like, how do you navigate people who don't really see you or don't consider you and that whole thing. And I can see it for like people who are like, for white people, men, how difficult it can be because you're just like, this whole society is built for this specific idea of who I'm supposed to be. Yeah. And if I am not that, then I'm worse off than some of these other people.
Hello.
I love that.
Well, while we try hard to forget about Donald Trump dancing to It's Raining Men, let's check in with John.
Got a few updates for you. So, Harris has officially taken Oregon, which we knew, but Trump has taken North Carolina. Now, it was a swing state, it could have gone either way, but he did spend an enormous amount of time there. Like, tons of money was spent there. He campaigned there, like, for the last 2 weeks, like, nonstop. It's what Kamala did in Pennsylvania, so I'm hoping things will come our way. The scariest thing for me right now is seeing the popular vote. It's 56 million for Trump and 51 million minus some change for Kamala. Now, the thing about that is typically in the past, we've seen the Democratic candidate win the popular vote, maybe lose the electoral. Having it switched now is a little surreal and a little scary. So, kind of begs the question, what do we do if things don't go our way tonight? What's our course of action? What's our plan of action? Just so we have something in our head. So stats, we are going back to the Senate in a second. 40 for the Dems, 48 for the GOP. It's tightening up. We knew it was going to be like 1 or 2 seat difference. It says the Dems have lost a seat and the GOP has gained a seat, which would mean that they would control the House because we have a tiebreaker right now, and the Vice President breaks the tiebreaker. Going to the House, we have 104 Democratic seats and 155 GOP seats. Like I said, the House is not going to be decided for a long time, probably not for a week, maybe 2. Queens, I would like to get in on the ground floor and ask a question before everyone else puts their questions in, because my sister had one. She texted me, I wonder what the ladies' opinions are on LGBTQ plus Trump supporters. I work with a doctor who is a woman of color and married to her wife for 20 years and is a huge Trumper. Quote, my sister, I don't get it. Help me out.
Well, I think it comes down to money. It sounds like that person is doing very well for themselves, and that's awesome. I feel like a lot of people of color who tend to support Trump, they have a particular pay scale. And
they're sellouts. No shame.
They got paid.
Capitalism is a hell of a drug.
Exactly,
and that grifting check.
I'm not at all upset with anyone who wants to hold on to their money. I get it. You worked hard for it. You want to hold on to it. But let's be real, people. This man is evil.
Yeah. Well, we are thrilled to invite Naomi Hartz, body positive trans influencer, back to the show. Naomi, we all like to think we are good humans who want to see equality for all, but how do we reconcile that idea with knowing that some of these people that we would protect are actively seeking to snuff out our human rights? Big question, I know.
I know, such a loaded question. Let's repeat that.
To simplify, essentially, because it's a complex question.
Yeah.
But how do we reconcile the notion of protecting everybody's free speech, everybody's rights to believe what they want, say what they will? How do we reconcile with that some of the people who are believing what they want and saying what they will don't think that we should get to?
Can we say curse words on here?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm just like, F them. It doesn't make sense to me how people want freedom for all, but it really isn't all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, even in this influencer world and where we're like, we could meet up and all of this, I talk about this often. It's like, as a trans woman, as a plus size woman, as a Latina, my white cisgender counterparts will always do better than me, will always get to say whatever they want with minimal repercussions. And I can go out there and say, I support Kamala Harris, and I get reprimanded because not all her policies are great. You know what I mean? And it's like, I understand what the situation is, but I know right now, looking in front of me, how scary that is. And it's like, I'm always gonna stand with what's right, and it's just very difficult.
I think to me, there's such a difference between free speech and hate speech.
Right.
Like, I think that's where the line has to get drawn at the end of the day. Yes, believe what you will, say what you will. But that doesn't mean, I also think that freedom to say what you want doesn't mean freedom from repercussions
Exactly.
for what you said.
100%. Hello.
And I think, yes, you can say all the vile, hateful nonsense that you want to say, but then people are going to respond to that in turn.
I agree.
Yeah, I think what you said about like they think that freedom of speech is exclusive to their hate speech and not like inclusive of us responding to what they have to say.
Exactly.
And like I said, fuck them. Like I can't, because they are so hateful, so violent towards us, killing trans women, like really like, you know, taking it there, and then we're just supposed to sit back and take it. And as someone who is not afraid to argue, I'm not afraid to fight back, like I'm not afraid of like getting dirty with it and like being nasty back.
Yeah, and what I can't take is when they're like, oh, it's a joke. Oh, why are you being so sensitive? Stop.
We can start joking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because the thing about jokes is that they should be fun.
Exactly.
Hello. For me, also, it's like, I think that a lot of people don't actually really understand what the First Amendment means and how it is protected and who and what that applies to. People think, oh, First Amendment, freedom of speech, I can say whatever the fuck I want. I hope I can say that.
You can.
The thing is, they think that is just this big, open invitation to say whatever you want with, as you said, without repercussion. What it actually means is you can say whatever you want without having the government interfere with that. So you can speak up against your government. You can criticize your government. You can criticize your leaders, your political officials, without having any sort of legal repercussions.
Right.
Now, if you say something crass or something hateful within a private sector, you say that at school, you say that in your workplace, those people also have the freedom of speech to say, we don't want you here and we are kicking you out.
Right.
The thing is, the government can't do that, but anybody within the private sector can. And I think that's actually part of the beauty of free speech.
Yeah.
I think that's the answer to the question, really, is like, yes, we can say that free speech should be protected, that you should be able to say what you want without the government specifically interfering. Right. But also, we shouldn't be platforming people who spew hate speech.
I also think for me, it hurts more when it comes from people like us. You know what I mean? There was something that y'all touched on earlier when I was watching where it was like, you know, the white trans woman who is voting for Trump, and it does not make sense to me because there's so much on the line. And it's like, even me, I consider myself pretty comfortable and passable in my transition, and I know that comes with privilege, but that doesn't mean that I am going to turn my back on my trans siblings who are not there because of the lack of resources, because of the fact that they don't have a supportive family, they can't do it. And it's just like, for me to just switch up like some of these girls have that I know, it's disheartening. And so I think that's something that
Are you the type to argue online?
I don't, but I'm not afraid to call out. I remember back in 2020, this was years ago, that there was this trans girl that was talking about, like, if you have not got on hormones and you still look like a man, that you're a man. And I went off and I was like, that's not something you can say because there's such a lack of access to resources. It's not like people don't want to get on hormones.
And they're trying to take away those rights actively right now.
Yeah.
And it's rough. It's rough. And it's like, even before we got here, my husband, he identifies as a straight cisgender man. I know. But
bless your soul.
He was like almost crying. He was like, I'm so scared for this election, and I'm so scared for you. And I'm like, how lucky am I to live in Los Angeles, California? But it's just like, I get it, and it's terrifying because we don't know what the future holds, and that's why we got married in 2020 when Trump, right after Trump got elected. We just didn't know. Or
Totally.
Biden, my bad.
Even just to add to what you just said about, one of the things that, as a trans non-binary person, as somebody who knows many different kinds of trans people, one of the things that really bothers me is when I see folks in the trans community dictating the right or wrong way to be trans, and it is diametrically opposed to what it means to be a queer person, to be able to exist and live in your own truth. There is no right or wrong. It's like being a racist. There's no right or wrong way to be trans.
And I've seen like the harm that does in just my own personal life. I'll occasionally like have a conversation with someone who will tell me, like, as I'm getting to know them, like a new person will tell me, I use they them pronouns, I identify as non-binary, and then they'll almost like they're trying to comfort me or like assuade me. They'll be like, oh, but I don't identify as trans though, because I know that that's not, like, there are people who are really trans, and like I'm not on hormones or anything. And I'm like, well, as a trans person who's on hormones, who wants all the physical transition stuff, welcome. You are one of us. You do not have to, you can identify the way you want to identify. I'm not telling you that you have to identify as trans.
Yeah.
But if that's a term that you feel like describes your experience, and the only thing stopping you is you're not on hormones yet, or you're not ever going to get on hormones, or you're not this or not that, ignore it.
I agree.
Be who you are. Claim the label that you want to claim. You are not taking anything away from me or any other trans person because you also claim you're trans.
Yeah.
It goes back to that idea of the pie. It's not a limited pie for trans people.
No. There's not a quantity of transness that's out there that could get used up if too many people say that they're trans. That's not how that works.
100%. And there's, like you said, there's no right or wrong way to transition. Some people don't want to get on hormones. Some people do. And your transition is your transition, and it's different for everyone.
Also, it's so expensive.
It's cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Depending on where you are, it's hard to access that care.
Yeah.
We're so fortunate, like in LA, it was so easy for me to access testosterone.
Yeah.
And I have like one of the luckiest stories, and I still like to sit through like an hour-long presentation about all the terrible ways that testosterone is going to ruin my life. And I'm the lucky one. I got through it fine, and now I've been on T for over 5 years. And it makes me worry for people in places where it's not as easy to access that care. I know people have had to wait for years and years and years to get on testosterone. I got my first shot during my first appointment.
Yeah. There are also like cis people who have like gender affirming care.
Yes.
You know, they take testosterone, they fix their face, like fix their
Boob
nose,
jobs.
boob jobs,
Even
all
like
these things.
Rogaine for men who are for
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's gender affirming care.
Exactly.
I feel comfortable in their transition.
Who was the right-wing podcaster? Frick, what is his name? He was he's a right-wing podcaster, cisgender, white male.
Joe Rogan?
Married to a woman, but he had like a concave chest, and he got chest implants.
Was this Andrew Tate?
No. Very of that type. I can't even remember his name, thankfully.
Of
I don't even want to
We don't want to
promote
platform him.
But the fact is, he was vehemently anti-trans, anti-gender affirming healthcare, yet he was doing something for his cisgender, gender affirming healthcare.
I've seen cis people experience dysphoria. It's so interesting. Like I've seen like cis people get into drag like because they're trying something new. Maybe they have a drag queen friend who wanted to put them into drag, and I've seen like cis men like see themselves in a gender presentation that they don't want and aren't used to, and the discomfort that causes. And I wish more people could recognize that any of us are capable of having those experiences of wanting gender affirming care, feeling gender dysphoria, and know that like, I have a friend who actually does a very silly thing, which is whenever he gets misgendered, he'll misgender the cis person right back. So like we were on our way out of a pizza place, and the pizza person said like, "Oh, thanks ladies," and he went, "You're welcome, ma'am." It was a guy, a cis guy. And like I wish more people could recognize that we are all capable of having those experiences and have empathy for what it's like.
100%.
Thanks for joining us, Naomi.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. John, how are things looking out there?
So the dude gets implants to affirm his own gender, but then he's against gender-affirming care for everyone else? Okay. All right, we have a few more states that have been called. We've got Oregon, New Mexico, and Illinois, all going for Kamala. We all expected it. Some things to note. The red mirage is a thing, okay? It exists. So we have to keep hope that this will turn in a way that's significant for us. The popular vote, I was talking about that last time, that gap has kind of shrunk a little bit. Nevada is not swinging one way or another yet. That's the only state that hasn't been called or leaning one way or another. But all the regular swing states are up in the air still. I feel like we're getting trolled really hard by this election, because it's like we are just as close as 2016 and 2020, but the stakes are like 100 times higher, which is why we're all freaking out. But the Electoral College, 192 for Harris, 230 for Trump, still very much up in the air. So, ladies, what do you think?
Thanks, John. Before we get back to it, I am really enjoying these rants. Who's got one more?
Ooh, I do. Okay, so I live in Hollywood, and I love my neighborhood, genuinely. I think Hollywood gets a bad rap, but I genuinely really love my neighborhood. It's got a lot of great businesses. It's got a lot of great people. I hate Hollywood Boulevard so much, with a passion. I have the worst experiences on Hollywood Boulevard. There was one day my partner and I were walking to try and catch the train, and we got like fully like cut in front of, cut off by a French white woman with dreads who was going to take a photo of Ronald Reagan's star. And that's the kind of experience you can have on Hollywood Boulevard. It was infuriating. I hated it so much. Tourists are like extra rude on Hollywood Boulevard. There's always, and I try not to be a judgmental person, but like, why are you and your entire family of 17 taking up the entire sidewalk? Please, like, leave room for the flow of traffic. People are just extra rude. Drivers on Hollywood Boulevard are like extra aggressive. I walk with a cane, and I was like just trying to cross the street, and someone honked at me for crossing the street. And I'm like, I walk as fast as you can see I'm a disabled person with mobility, and I walk as fast as I walk. I don't know what you want from me. Yeah, absolute Hollywood Boulevard hater. I love the rest of my neighborhood, but it's the worst street.
Yeah, my thing with drivers when they start honking and start being aggressive, it's like, girl, you're gonna get to your destination faster than I am.
Always will.
Like, why, what?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Not in Koreatown. No, I'm sorry. Not in Koreatown. I will get there faster. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm also not a big fan. Okay. Hollywood Boulevard, love Hollywood in general.
Sure.
But yeah, Hollywood Boulevard, it's so interesting because it's such a tourist destination. People have this idea in their minds of, I'm going to go see the Walk of Fame. And then they get there, it's literally just like stars with people's names on it. People trying to walk by. I will say I do love that people have been defacing Trump's star over the past few years. And I'm putting this out there that I hope our city council will just remove that star.
Yeah. Maybe it costs more than it's worth.
No, absolutely. They have to repair it every single time.
Yeah, replace it actually. It's so destroyed.
Maybe just remove it. Maybe get rid of it entirely.
And is he even a star? Is he even a star? Like, what did he do? Like Home Alone?
Well, I guess
like,
he was. He had a television show, I suppose.
Okay.
I liked him better in that era when he wasn't in charge of anything.
Yeah. Okay, low-key, he's kind of funny. But
yeah, if he had no systemic power whatsoever, he'd be way more amusing as a human being.
Yeah. I think the solution though also with Hollywood Boulevard is that they put out like fast walking lanes.
They should. Like I live here and I just need to get where I'm going lane.
Like when you come into the country and they have visitors and citizens, it should be the same
Not the
way.
segregation.
No, if I have somewhere I need to go and you're stopping right in front of me, you're getting an elbow.
I think that is kind of a good solution. I also always find it really funny when I'm like clearly like walking with my groceries, like couldn't look more like I live here, and somebody's like, "Do you want a Hollywood tour?" And I'm like,
"I live here.
I live here." Also, my dad is like the #1 LA like history aficionado, and so like I can get the tour for free just by driving anywhere in a car with my dad unprompted. So I don't know, but thanks y'all. I do feel better. Next, we have our fabulous makeup artist, Eric, coming to the table to join us right after this break.
Come on, everybody. Let's get live. loud.
Kamala Harris is the president for the American economy.
Kamala Harris has dedicated her entire career to public service.
I'm not here as a politician. I'm here as a mother.
Within their lifetime, the fundamental right of freedom of choice.
People like Donald Trump don't believe women deserve rights. And when those rights are taken away, they are nowhere to be found.
Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are fighting for a new way forward, strengthens our democracy, protects reproductive freedom.
Kamala Harris will protect your right to disagree with her about policies or ideas.
That's why I believe that Kamala, as president, to bring that unity back and continue to move our country forward.
That people shouldn't be afraid to express their opinions. And I don't think anyone wants an America where people are worried about retribution of what people will do if you make your opinion known.
I am Puerto Rican. Soy Boricua carajo. And yes, I was born here, and we are Americans.
We're at a time in our history where we're fighting against real evil. So I beg you, please, don't go to the orange side.
What I say? We've got work to do.
So fun that our show's very own makeup artist and often TikTok buddy, Eric David, is joining us. Eric.
Hello.
Welcome. Give us the tea. What has been the best part of working with us, and any stories that come to mind? You can start with me.
Okay, well, I'm going to collectively talk about all of you guys first. Working with you guys and accepting me and like just being as loving as you guys are has been a beautiful journey. So first I want to thank you guys all for that.
We love you.
You include me on your TikToks. You let me touch you up, even though I can't do drag makeup. I really, really just appreciate everything.
Well, you
that
beat the heck out of my share.
I
I came in looking an absolute mess, and Eric worked some absolute magic on me.
You know, we had to fix the contour a little bit, shape it out, a little
The
blending.
eye.
I always say, if you think you haven't blended enough, you haven't. So you follow that motto. But Sade, you have been just so beautiful and accepting. I've really never hung out with someone that's taller than me. I was literally showing my friend the TikTok that we made, and he was like, wow, you actually look little next to all of them. And I'm like, I've never been called little in my life. Thank you.
You're just an itty bitty.
Yeah, I'm just itty bitty. With you, Leona, you have shown me that the way you look, how you present makeup, how everything, it doesn't matter. Just like you were saying earlier, trans and non-binary does not really have a look. You know, and so that is something that really works for me because obviously I'm a gay Jewish man. I wear makeup. I present as non-binary. I don't care what my pronouns are. Call me a pelican. I don't really care. Call me whatever. But that's something that I've learned with you.
Thank you.
Mom.
Okay, wait, y'all. This is, we're going to just say it on
Officially.
TV, officially, my dry daughter.
Yes. We're going to be called Anita Nap.
Everyone
wants a nap. You know what I'm saying? So, thank you so much for just accepting me. And I love that how communicative you are. And we collaborated on a lot of your looks and stuff like that. I picked out the lip that she's wearing tonight, you know, because it's like, and I loved that about you. And Miss Maybe, you have been a political figure, and just seeing that alone has inspired me to continue on with my TikTok journey, to use my voice, to not give up, and to fight the powers that be, because fuck them. You know, that's what we just got to do. We got to all be together and fight whatever's going to go on. And I just love y'all, and I don't want this to end, and I want us to all hang out and kiki.
I know, and we
Thank
will.
you, Pelican.
Yeah.
Thank you. That'll be your new drag name, actually. Just Pelican.
Just Pelican. I'll come out with wings and a big beak, you know?
No, I can't wait to. I know you're a makeup artist. I used to be a makeup artist, like while I was in college, like being on set and stuff too. I want to teach you how to do drag makeup.
Oh, I cannot wait for you to do.
I want you to look like this.
That's gonna be so great. I want to do it so bad. I've never done full drag. I've tried. It's failed. Blocking the brow. I just don't get any of it.
What's
but
the
I wanna
practice?
learn.
Yeah.
Like any other thing.
It's practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You just gotta keep doing
I'll
it.
be real with you guys. I never did makeup on myself pre-pandemic. Not one
Whoa.
time. So the pandemic kind of forced me.
Yeah.
And now you get boy glam. But it kind of forced me to do it, and so like my followers, they all love it. So it's been really cool to kind of learn. But I want to do this. I think that would be so much fun.
What do you think is the hardest part about being like a makeup artist on set?
The hardest part about being a makeup artist on set is, for me, I'm a big person on continuity. So even if it's like a little hair out of place or a little something, I just want to jump in there. And most of the time you can't. You know what I'm saying? So like when you guys are live, if I see something, I can't just jump in and just be like, hey, let me fix that for you real quick. So that's the hardest thing. I'm kind of like a director. So I like, when I see them put the talent or someone in not the right light or something like that, I'm like, they don't look good, they look like shit. But that's out of my
There's
control.
only so
So
much you can do.
people
Which
gotta
one of
realize,
us?
you guys, this lighting is amazing. But on set as a makeup artist, you're literally, you would think we're higher in the totem pole because we're working directly with talent, but we're not. We're
We're really
literally
not.
at the bottom, so it's just like you kind of just show up. But I do have a big reputation that no production is ever going to wait on me, because that's a big thing, a big note that I've learned. I've learned on time is late. And so no production has ever waited on me or my makeup team, my hair team, my stylist team, because time is money. We all like money. So
it really is. And, we should also give our little tidbits.
Yes.
Like, why we adore you so much.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, you were such an immediately warm and welcoming presence. Like the moment we started working with you, you've been so incredibly kind. You're also just fun to
You are so fun.
Thank you.
I feel like you're more than just like the makeup artist, the beauty person. Like as soon as like we got onto set, you low-key felt like our mother.
Yeah.
That's like when you're like, oh, mother to me, I was like, baby, you're the mother. Like you really made us feel so safe, so warm, and like just being a part of our TikToks and feeling excited with us and being outside doing bad things.
Making sure I'm not shiny.
Yeah. Did you?
I was gonna say, even my first day when we came in, I had cut myself shaving. I know it looks like I don't grow any hair on my face, but I had a huge gash right here, and I was like, "Can you help me?" And you just pulled out all of the products. You were doing all the repairs on my face, and I felt like we immediately connected. So thank you for saving my face.
Like, you have been amazing as well, and it's not just Eric. Eric is part of a two-man team. Shout out to Tony. Thank you, Tony, for making us look so fabulous. I feel like Cinderella.
Yes. Well, love you guys. Thank you guys so much for being a part of my life, and I hope to continue this journey with you guys.
Oh yes, absolutely.
My love language is caregiving. So anything you guys need, anytime you need tips or tricks, you just let me know, and I'll be there for you.
We'll be at the bars.
Yeah, we'll be at the bars.
We'll be at the bars soon.
Cranberry juice, but
I need a nap, make her debut.
I need a nap.
I need a nap.
She might be sleeping, but we'll be there.
That'll be your first number. Take a nap.
Yeah, I'll just be sleeping on stage.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Eric. That was so much fun.
Thank you.
Remember to get your questions in before the end of the show, Politicuties. This last week, Leona interviewed Neurocosmos, a drag king in Washington, D.C., and here's what we learned.
I am here today with a DC-based drag king and disability activist, Neurocosmos. All right, well, my first question for you is, can you tell me a little bit about Disabled Delight, the show that you produce in DC? What moved you to start the show, and what's the ethos behind how you run it?
Yeah, so I created Disabled Delight, and what prompted it really was my good friend Desiree Dick offered me the opportunity to produce my own show in her home venue, and that was like, oh, I could actually do this to start my own show. This could be like the first steps for that. And so there I kind of built up kind of show I've been always wanting to do, Disabled Delight, which is a drag show in which all the cast is composed of disabled drag artists, and we can perform whatever numbers that we want to do. And the ethos that I like to infuse the show with is that we are dreaming of a world where we revel in our disabled beauty, filled with the joy of flourishing exactly as we are.
I love that. That is such a beautiful answer. Thank you. You were recently nominated by several members of your community for the title of Community Changemaker at the DC Drive Awards. How did it feel to receive that nomination?
Yeah, I was very honored and deeply honored the nomination process in which artists were nominated by our own community. So it's mainly local drag artists who nominated me. And like at this point I've been doing drag for almost 2 years, and so it's quite an honor to get into that that space and be recognized in that way for the work I've been doing in creating disabled space in local drag.
My last question for you is in regards to the upcoming election. You told me earlier this week about your decision to make a write-in vote for Claudia Dela Cruz and Karina Garcia. Would you be open to sharing a little more about what influenced that choice and how you feel about voting third party overall?
I did write Claudia Dela Cruz and Karina Garcia in. And the main reason why this was to put the Palestinian and Lebanese people first. The Palestinian Lebanese people I've been listening to in my local community have expressed they do not want people to vote for Harris nor Trump.
Thank you for that, Neuro. I so appreciate you coming on and sharing that perspective with us. And I so appreciate the work that you're doing out in DC. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
All right, Politicuties, we're going to answer a couple of your questions now. With this being the last episode for now, what has been your favorite moment of the show?
Comes to us from Betsy Carlson. Thank you. I feel like all of it has been so lovely. It's hard to pick like a favorite moment. I really loved getting to interview you. That was a delight. We've known each other for so long.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to get to do that.
That was really awesome. Oh, I love that too. Same answer.
I think my favorite, honestly, has just been, well, maybe I already knew you, but meeting Hentai and Leona and bonding and, doing the TikToks. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'm not a TikTok girl, so, like, getting into that has been...
It's been really fun.
Yeah.
It's been super fun.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I loved meeting all of you. It's my first time meeting all of y'all, like, just a few weeks ago, and it makes me so sad because I feel like we're just getting into the groove of it all. But okay, there's two things I'd like to talk. The first thing is I love after the show, we go to this brewery called McCloud's and we walk there and it's so shady walking there and it's so stinky and dangerous. And we're almost getting hit by cars in half drag. And we get there, we have our Satakoy sour with
And
blood orange.
John, who works there, always greets us all by name.
Exactly.
It's like the sweetest environment.
I'm so gagged you said that because I was about to say, can I change my answer? I was going to say it's going to McCloud's after we film.
It is. I think the second thing I really love, honestly, the look. I love just being in my sketchbook, writing down all the things, drawing all the things I want to do, and creating the looks for this because I really put a lot of effort into my art and for it to be on TV, to be shown with professional lighting and cameras. I'm like, hold up.
Yes.
These TV girls better watch out
Yeah.
because we're looking a little too good.
Very good.
Come on, this dress, y'all look amazing.
So Naomi Hartz asks, how will you take care of yourselves tonight?
We're going to McCloud's.
We're going to McCloud's for one.
Yes. And then afterwards, I will be taking a nice, long, hot shower.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna be leaning on my boyfriend. I'll go home to him after McCloud's. I think we're both feeling equally trepidatious and anxious right now. So I think for so much of it is just leaning on community.
Yeah. Obviously McCloud's, but also I might go to Revolver. I might go to Revolver after. Just if Kamala, we do see that Kamala wins tonight, we have to celebrate. I feel like no matter what, I need to celebrate. But yeah, I'm gonna eat.
Yeah, I obviously, again, McCloud's, I've said that 6 times now. But I don't know, election night, it's always interesting to me. I think especially after 2016, I went to an election party that night and I just remember I was with my friends. We were all so excited and then Trump won and it was just silence. And then I think even ever since, I don't know if we're even going to know tonight. We have some idea of what's going to happen tonight. But I think ultimately, given that we can smoke weed in California, I think I'm just going to go home and smoke some weed.
Okay.
I got some for us later.
What's next for the Queens? How can we keep up with you from Austin? Well, what's next? I host a show in North Hollywood.
What's it
not
called?
A show, a party. It's not a show. It's a party, but you will get a show.
Okay.
What's it called?
It's called Hot Chocolate. It's at
Okay.
Boat Bar.
Ooh.
And can I?
Please.
Maybe. Can I?
Go for it.
And then also, maybe is a host along with Hybrid for a new show called. Actually, you go ahead and.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. You forgot the name of the show?
No.
So Swade and I, we've actually been a part of a drag show called Wigs and Waffles for the past 3 years. We are just changing venues. We're going to be at the new Roosterfish opening up in West Hollywood. The show is going to be called Wigs and Waffles Presents Hen House at Roosterfish, starring the Roosterfish Nets. Every Sunday in West Hollywood.
You'll be hearing from my lawyers. Because the hen house is the name of the house.
We'll have you as a guest.
Yes.
But not knowing the name?
Yeah.
That is a mouthful.
I love it, though.
Yes, the hen house.
What are you up to?
So I co-host a show with my dear friend Cyclops. It is called Disabled Cable. You can find us on Instagram at Disabled Cable. We've been taking a little bit of a hiatus due to having to revenue, but we're hoping to come back strong ASAP. So follow us, keep an eye out for us. It's an all disabled drag review, just like Neurocosmos hosts in DC. And we've had like such great turnout in all of the shows we've hosted in the past, so we're hoping to get back to it ASAP.
Yeah.
What about you, Hen?
Well, you can find me all over West Hollywood. I'm booked and blessed. And I'm doing another like comedy type of thing. I just did like a stand-up show recently.
Oh, I know. The roast, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna do the roast. It's called Roasted Veggies by a vegetarian from the House of Yuck, and I'm gonna let these girls have it. Because I learned from this show that like, even though I'm very beautiful, I can dance, I have all these other talents, my biggest talent is my mouth.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Okay. She's good with her mouth.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I definitely want to do more TikToks. So you might see some collabs of more TikToks from us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Anytime I'm in WeHo.
Yeah.
Let's go back to John one last time.
Hello, everybody. So for our last update, I'm going to try to end positively. One thing I will mention right at the top is that Georgia is about 93% counted up, and it looks like Trump has about 100,000 vote lead there. That being said, there is still a path to victory, and it looks very, very strong. This is what my producer Harley just sent me. She said Joe Biden won some counties. I'm going to start with this one. 400,000 mail-in ballots are still to be counted in Pennsylvania, even after today is over. So Trump only has a 200,000 lead in Pennsylvania right now, with most counties still reporting. So that's a great sign. Let's see, Joe Biden won some counties in Arizona by 50%. Kamala is currently winning at 51% in those counties. Usually in Pennsylvania, when Erie County goes to a candidate, the whole state goes. It's going for Kamala right now. So only 43% of the vote is in Michigan. Detroit, I'm looking at you. Let's go. So that being said, there's still a lot to be hopeful for. The night is young. We might not even know for a week. But it has been an honor and a privilege to talk about these updates with all of you wonderful queens. This has been a place and a set of love and wonderful positivity. And I love you guys. Thanks for having me.
This feels so emotional. Like when I got my first pair of Tuck It Ups. I'm not alone though.
Officially voted for Kamala Harris for President of the United States.
This is a really emotional day.
I'm proud to say that I voted early, and I voted for Kamala Harris.
I did not have a crown in my car on my bingo card today, and it took everything I had to keep myself together. I was inside, I just got done early voting.
All of you are first-time voters?
First-time voters.
Yes. Raise your hand if this is your first presidential election.
So I just voted for Harris, the first black female president. I feel like my heart is beating fast because I saw so many people there and it just felt like hope. It felt like hope.
I did it. I voted for a black woman for president here in Georgia. Did you vote? Are you gonna vote? Will you vote for me? Did you vote? Are you gonna vote?
Will you vote for me? Will you vote for me?
Wow. Doing this show with the three of you has been such a joy and such a dream. Y'all have actually made this a fun election season, but we are almost out of time. I'm wondering how y'all are feeling about the results as they've come in. What do we think is going to happen?
I think it's likely, as John has mentioned, that we might not know for certain tonight. I think no matter what happens, we have a lot of work ahead of us. These results are daunting, but I don't think it's the end yet, and it won't be when the results are in.
Right. I do feel better in this particular situation compared to where I was in 2016. At this particular moment, I put myself to sleep. Like, I turned off the TV and I just went under the covers because it wasn't looking good. But I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic.
I feel hopeful too. You know, I was really emotional yesterday. I basically was like bedridden for about 2 hours because I just could not get up from like the anxiety that was holding me down. And, you know, sometimes you really need that like ugly, deep sob. And I'm so dramatic. Like, I'm very dramatic. But I just had to like have that like very visceral reaction. And also, when you think about it, like Kamala's mom was an immigrant. In one generation, she was able to become the DA, Attorney General, a US Senator, Vice President, and now could possibly be the President of the United States. And that is just so amazing to see just in one generation. And it makes me want to believe in like the American dream and I want to believe in the American experiment that like there's justice for all, equality for all, that we can all achieve our dreams. But I don't know. We'll see tonight what happens. I'm feeling hopeful, but I am just an optimistic person. So what about you, baby?
I will say also, like, you know, it's been an interesting election. I think one thing that has really stayed with me throughout the course of this election season, I remember listening to a program on NPR months and months back, and the person was talking about how important it is for young Black girls to be seeing a Black woman being the presidential nominee and potentially the President of the United States, and how important that is for young white boys to also see that. And I think with that, we're changing the course of how the world is moving and the way that we are, you know, just including everybody. And I think that's so important. But I'm also nervous. I woke up this morning. I had a lot of anxiety today. I had to work this morning. It was hard to focus on work. I didn't get a lot of work done today. Sorry, Sarah. Sorry, Rachel. It was hard working today. But, you know, just being with all of you today has really, you know, uplifted me. And I think we've talked about this before. Regardless of the outcome, we know that we have community. And we know that we are going to have to continue to fight moving forward. But we have each other.
Yeah. And we'll lean on each other. And hopefully it's in celebration. I do hope we wake up tomorrow with joy, not dread. But no matter what, hanging with you ladies and our political cuties these last few weeks has been a time.
You cry. How dare you? And remember that no matter what happens tomorrow, we still have a lot of work.
Be kind to yourself and others.
And thank you for joining us for Last Week Was a Drag. Thank you. Cheers to us. Cheers. I love y'all.
There's something in me that's been burning me, and I got to let it speak. 'Cause I've been hiding